Next, we are looking forward to hearing from Annalisa Escobedo. She is an artist from San Francisco. She's going to be presenting a selection of her own work and that of other artists through her art and culture ecosystem practice. Anna, all yours.
Thank you. Thank you for creating and sharing and welcoming into this space. So I'm a visual artist. Some of the works I work with in hand is acrylic, gouache, watercolors, and embroidery. And the other work I do is definitely like, instead of just taking from this city that has welcomed me, from the arts and culture ecosystem, I definitely want to give back as much as I can. Next slide. I'm starting with the works that based on memory impacted me, and two of the most impactful art pieces to me has been the restoration of the women's building, Masterpiece, and then the restoration of the mural 500 Years of Resistance at St. Peter's Church. Both treasures of the city of San Francisco, both are most visited murals in the neighborhood. And both were created by, for, and funded by the people. One of the most impactful things about the women's building that I worked on, and it's forever now my legacy, is I was trained by the original all-women muralist team to, in the future, train the next generation of women to restore this building. Next slide. Other work I've done is May of 2014. I'm one of the co-founders of the first Calle 24 Latino Cultural District. There is a map, and it's a district is based on not just public works, but also the idea of intangible works. Tangible is the public, the monuments, the murals, the physical and permanent, even temporary presence. The intangible are the cultural significance and the events and the process and the activations that happen. Next slide. An example of intangible is actually this festival called Fiesta de las Americas that actually started in 1940s. It stopped in the 80s. You only will hear about it when you spoke to elders that are born and raised in the neighborhood. And luckily back in 2017, me along with a group of stakeholders, we decided to bring it back. And next slide, please. And one of the most intangible examples of this, in the 1980s, the festival actually had created these beautiful banners, flags on metal, painted, and they used to hang up and down the street in the flagpoles. And in 2017, we restored them just in time to bring back this festival. Next slide, please. I wanted to show an art piece. This is an installation work I've done. It's indoors, temporary, one day in, one day out, can't touch the walls kind of status. It was called Rest in Peace. It was inside the San Francisco Symphony. It was the Day of the Dead altar. I grew up around gangs and police violence, so I wanted to interpret a concrete jungle. And I invited guests to actually partake by sharing a memory and insight of someone that or a place that has been lost to the streets. Next slide. And coinciding with that, that was actually a sketch. Next slide, please. The next slide will be a mural called Alto a Fuego. This was painted right before the pandemic, and it actually depicts people of color who were murdered by police violence locally and nationally. One of the biggest memories I have in painting this mural was painting and adding more names to it and more faces, to the point where we had to stop accepting names, and it broke all of the muralist hearts, including myself. But the saddest and I believe most quoted thing is that we could keep painting murals on people who passed away by the hands of injustice served in the neighborhood, locally and nationally. Next slide, please. I have a very fortunate job where I'm the engagement project manager at Yerba Buena Center for the Arts. And during the pandemic, I love this project because at the center, I want to pay artists. And this project uplifted artists by paying them to go out to the streets to be public health ambassadors. This is a group of artists that were asked to bring joy and uplift and remind people like to hold on dearly throughout this whole year into this day. Next slide. Along with the performances, we also paid muralists and visual artists to go out and paint businesses, boarded up businesses, and parklets with also that messaging. This is a mural and a parklet in Chinatown, one of the most affected neighborhoods during COVID of this year. Next slide. This is where I'm at right now. I am part of the new monument task force, and I am actually starting an open call at the end of this month where I'm asking artists to submit finished works that respond to how do we reclaim the collective sensory experience that tell the story of our communities. This is part of inspiration actually from Americas for the Arts last year, where Paul Fiver spoke from the New Monument Task Force after watching so many consistent conversations about monuments and toppling down, removing them, what happens next? And I'm a great believer for many years, each one of us, and we've seen many artists that's been breaking the process of this unjust, underrepresented. So I would love to invite many people to participate and be part of this digital zine that celebrates, uplifts. I also like to call it like the cookbook of recipes that we should be showing our city officials, like this is how you can bring communities' voices in it. You are welcome to go to the website and check out more. And of course, I'm happy to have this consistent conversation. Oh my goodness, I did it.
You sure did. Thank you so much, Annalisa.